Some people make things happen. Some people watch things happen, while others wonder what has happened. So we're going to have a quick review of 2024 and then think about what could happen in 2025. Would that be useful?
Yes.
Just before we start, just in case, please do remember none of this is financial advice. Don't do anything on the back of anything I say. I'm just some bloke on the stage. So you make your own decisions. None of this is to give you any guidance as to what you should be investing in. So with that said, let's see what happened in 2024. And we're actually going to start just at the back end of 2023 to see what people were saying was going to happen in 2024. So that then we can compare that a little bit later with what people are saying is going to happen in 2025, if you see what I mean. So you've got a bit of a benchmark to judge whether these predictions are actually any good. I'm going to start with Savills. And at the back end of 2023, and you probably can't read that, so the important bit I've made a bit bigger for you, they were predicting that house prices, property prices, on average across the UK were going to drop by 3% this year. Did they drop by 3% this year? Who thinks they did? Who thinks they didn't? And who's not sure or doesn't care? Okay, well, most of you are right on that. They did not. And actually, although Savills were saying that they would, they actually changed their minds. And around about the middle of the year, they actually revised that figure up. And they revised it up by a whopping 6%. Now, I actually don't mind that. I think that's a very sensible thing to do. I have to say, I get a bit upset when I see the media always accusing the government of doing U-turns. Now, I don't care whether it's a blue government or a red government or even a yellow or a green one if we ever get to that point. I think there's something actually which is mature about changing your mind when you realise you get it wrong. But the media don't like that. They always say, oh, government's done a U-turn. No, the government's realised they got it wrong and they've changed what they're doing. That's okay. And in the same way, Savills realised that they got it wrong, and so they changed their minds, which is the right thing to do. So I didn't mind that. But they decided that rather than going down 3%, they were going to go up 3%. Now, the one thing which they did change, though, is that for the years following, subsequent years, they actually revised their figures down a little bit from the first prediction. So they went up for 2024, but down a little bit for 27, and so on. And we'll come back to that, because I think that that was probably quite wise as well. And I'll tell you why when we get into our predictions for next year. But let's see what actually happened. Well, according to Nationwide, and don't forget, these figures are only up to November, because we haven't finished the year yet, but up to November, Nationwide are saying that prices rose by 3.7% compared to Savills' 3%, and Halifax are saying that they rose by 4.8% compared to Savills' 3%. So Savills was still undercooking it even when they revised it up, which shows actually it's been, in some ways, depending upon where the property is, because obviously we're only talking about an average here, it's actually been quite a strong year for property. And if you like graphics rather than words, that's what it looks like as a graph. Pointing in the right direction, maybe. Is that true, by the way? Is it pointing in the right direction? Well, it depends whether you're buying or selling, really, doesn't it? Some of us, maybe we're thinking, no, actually, Peter, we'd like to see them going down and going down quite a lot. We will think about that more later. Which brings us to the grand finale. What's going to happen to property prices next year? So by a quick show of hands, who thinks they're going to go up? Who thinks they're going to go down? Who's not sure or doesn't care? Yeah. Overall, yeah. Stay the same. I don't think I gave you that option, did I? There we go. Well, this is what Savills think. Savills are thinking that they're going to go up by 4%. They're also thinking they're going to go up a little bit in 2026 and then start tailing off from 2027 onwards, which to me sounds about right, because behind it all, and we don't want to forget this, there's a bigger cycle at play. Knight Frank, by the way, and Zoopla both disagree with Savills. They're saying 2.5% next year, which may or may not be right. But this is the cycle we need to be thinking about, which is the 18.6-year property cycle. Anybody heard me talk about this? Yeah, this is what I've gone about endlessly now, don't I? So I kept it just a little bit at the end, but a quick update. So where are we on this cycle? Well, a rough guess, because it's very hard to be precise, but we're probably there. We're in that bit. We're in that sharp, spiky bit. And for those of you who are unaware of the 18.6-year property cycle, basically, it runs like clockwork. Sometimes it's 16 years, sometimes it's 20, but roughly around about 18 on average is about right. 14 years up, 4 and a bit years down or sideways. And we are coming towards the end of it, and at the end of it, the 14 years up actually has about sort of 2 years of a lot of up. And in theory, if it's right, and I'm not saying it is, by the way, I'm just kind of telling you what I found. I'm not saying this is absolutely right. There's people out there who will tell you this is absolutely right, though, but we don't know how much coffee they've had. If that's right, we're coming up to that peak, and that peak will finish potentially sometime next year, probably towards the end of that next year, or the beginning of 2026. And then it will be 4 years down, potentially, or a couple of years down and a couple of years sideways until we go back into the 14 years up. So that's what's potentially coming, which is why when I was reading those Savills predictions, I was thinking, yeah, actually that's not too bad, because at least they're actually bringing them down in 2026, 2027, 2028, although I suspect that they've undercooked that, and if this plays out, they'll be coming down by a lot more than the Savills prediction is showing. So just something to think about. And in theory, at the end of the cycle, we'll come up. If you can see the graphic, you see how 2007, 2008 we went up, which looks a bit like this bit. Got that bit? Well, that's that bit. And then look what happened. It went boom, dropped like a stone. Like that. That's what we're heading for. Cycles repeat. We can predict it. We can predict what's going to happen, just not necessarily when it's going to happen. But that will happen. It will happen at some point. So be prepared. Make your plans. It's an opportunity. Nothing to fear. If you want to see more of me, and you may not, but if you do, you can find me on Facebook under Peter Jones. You can find me at my website, thepropertyteacher.co.uk. Or even on YouTube. Again, The Property Teacher. Thank you ever so much, everybody. Have a lovely, refreshing break.